Hey.
Welcome, welcome. Thanks for jumping in. Good to see you guys again.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. So yeah, very excited to have Rachel here with us. Rachel came through our community. She is a leader when it comes to personal branding, marketing. She's starting a new role in a few days, so congratulations to Rachel.
Thank you.
Part of what we were thinking about doing today, and Rachel can kind of like take the lead. We sent her Stephanie and Patrice's profiles beforehand, so you have a little bit of context there. One of the things that we wanted to chat about today was personal branding in your job search, which we talk about a lot. And then what are specific things that you guys can be doing to understand not only like the types of companies that you can be working for, but the culture of the company that you're going to be going into. How can you figure out some of that stuff beforehand so you're more prepared going into the interview when you don't necessarily have access to maybe talk to people directly, or maybe you do, and Rachel will talk a little bit about that too. So Rachel, maybe you want to just introduce yourself a little bit, and then we can focus on either Stephanie or Patrice first and kind of run with it.
Yeah, awesome. So, hello, I'm Rachel. It's really great to be here. When you reached out to me, I was just really excited about being able to give back, and help out any way I could whilst I still had capacity. Just bearing in mind, obviously, that a full-time job does take up quite a lot of time and attention once you get started, and obviously that would be my priority moving forward. So yeah, I am a sales operations manager at PagerDuty, or at least I will be next week, and contracts are all signed, which is great. Prior to that, I was running sales operations in EMEA at Ping Identity, which is another public tech company. So a very similar kind of role. And unfortunately, I was made redundant due to COVID, like many people. And, I feel very privileged because I have found a job relatively quickly in a climate that is really, really tough. And I don't think this is because I'm a special snowflake. I think this is because, I was in the right place at the right time. I was lucky, and the interviews went well. And so my aim here today is to be here for you in any way that you want, and really just to switch the mic over to understand where you're at in your job search, your career journeys, what you're wanting, what you're exploring, what you're struggling with, and really be a sounding board for you, and think about how I can be valuable. Does that make sense? Does
Love
that
it.
work for
Yeah,
you?
Yeah, that sounds
that
great.
is very, very good. So I can kind of, I'll probably have my video on and off for bandwidth, but I'll kind of maybe introduce Patrice a little bit first, because we've had Patrice and Stephanie on before with some past sessions. So Patrice, for example, is looking for a role in marketing. It would need to be something remote, or at least ideally it would be something remote. She was working in travel, doing a lot of consumer type marketing, and she's, you know, kind of open to, I think, a wide range, it sounds like, of industries and
Yeah,
things
I
like that.
really am.
But I'll let her kind of tell it in her own words in terms of like, how are things going, what's working, what's not working, and how can Rachel be most helpful.
Yeah, no,
Awesome.
sounds good. Yeah, so I'm Patrice. I suppose kind of what we were saying on Friday as well, with that huddle up, I was working in a full-time position in Ireland, and then I moved over to the States in February to be with my partner over here in Virginia, and I'm looking for a remote role at the moment just because we're not sure on our location for the next couple of months.
Of
And
course.
then decided in February to take a month off just because it's coming out of an intense role, and unfortunately COVID hit and it became a lot harder to get a permanent remote position. So at the moment I'm doing some consulting for my old company and doing a little bit of freelance work, but I think at the moment just applying to remote jobs it can be very it kind of bogs me down a little bit, trying to stand out when there's so many other people
Of course.
applying for these positions.
I mean, the question that I was going to ask, and you got there before me, was, what tactics have you tried so far? What are you doing at the moment? So, I mean, I know that for me personally, what's always been most helpful, and actually particularly now, has been, rather than applying for roles, like focusing on building relationships with people. I mean, you read this everywhere, it's in every article, but it is actually honestly true. And I also know that sometimes it can be hard to access the right kinds of people, or to know what that means and looks like. So I'm happy to provide any tips, you know, and thoughts on that too. But yeah, I'd like to hear where have you got to with that? How are you approaching it from that standpoint?
So when I first, when I was starting to look in March, and I was like, oh no, these kind of remote positions are, disappearing very fast. And I was initially sending a lot of emails to a lot of positions, and it wasn't really getting me anywhere. So then I reached out to people within my network that I knew had access to either consulting work, or they knew someone. So kind of building off that, and that did keep me busy for a while. I suppose at the moment, especially as I was working with companies in Ireland, they were shut down completely from COVID. They had remote work, and the way it was going with their package, with their different types of packages, what the government was providing, was that a lot of people took the leave and decided to go on furlough for a little while. And then there was a little bit of work left open for freelancers, which is kind of closing now.
Yeah. Got you. So, I mean, as a starting point, just listening, I mean, first and foremost, I hate to plug stuff, but are you a member of Alpha by any chance? Okay, so full disclosure, I am a community manager for Alpha as well. So there is a vested interest here. I'm the community manager because I love it, like genuinely. It's been really, really valuable for my own professional growth. I met my mentor, or somebody that I regard as a mentor, through it. I've connected with loads of really amazing women doing really, really interesting things in their careers. And I just think it's been really, really valuable for me. So what Alpha is an online community for women in tech, or women who are interested in tech, to speak candidly with one another. So in essence, it's kind of like a forum, and it's private. And there's options to message people, and there's a jobs board. There's different directories. So if you're looking for freelance work, you can put yourself on there. You can post something for the entire community to see, and people will respond. And really, what I've been struck by is how kind people are. And the reason why I say that is because, I really, I empathize with your position in terms of, trying really, really hard and really putting yourself out there and doing all the right things, and not necessarily getting the response that like you want and deserve. And, it's not personal to you at all. People are not ignoring you just because it's you. It's just, people have very limited capacity. You don't know what's going on for them. And I think that occurs in life in general, but particularly in this kind of situation with COVID, where, so much is so up in the air, as you've already said. So, I mean, as a first kind of port of call, like, I would love to sort of intro you to that sort of network of people. And even just, putting a starter post on there saying what you're looking for, people will respond. People will be willing to talk to you. And people will also be willing to make referrals and be more proactive than perhaps they might otherwise be. I feel like I've been really blessed. My past 3 roles, the role at PagerDuty I actually got through relatively conventional means. The recruiter reached out to me and said, we're interested, we've got this role, we're interested in you. Will you talk to us? But the sales operations role that I had at Ping, I actually got through the VP really liking me and thinking that I would be a good fit, despite me not having had prior experience in that kind of role. And so this is where I think, as I sort of said before, like, relationships and really getting to know people, makes a difference. I don't have like a blueprint at all. But honestly, I think that just being authentic and being interested and going the extra mile in that regard, it does really make a difference. It does help you to stand out. And I think the crucial thing there is, don't sacrifice who you are for the sake of trying to get a job, because it comes across as being inauthentic anyway, and it actually just devalues you too. Like, not to get on the whole like cliches again, but you deserve more, you deserve better. Just because we're in a pandemic, doesn't mean that you should settle for, way less compensation than you want, for example. I know obviously, it's a tough time, and, we all need money, but still, like, play the long game if you can, in terms of, making sure that it's the right fit. Because that will also pay dividends.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And just with it being the right fit, I suppose what I found is with any position I'm looking at online is that a lot of the synopsis and the description sound so similar. It's kind of hard to determine a lot of the time, even when you're applying, you're like, oh, should I really be applying for this and spending time on this position? Or
yeah, So what I've always done when applying through, conventional means, so through, job sites, is write a really personalized cover letter that really shows my voice and personality. And yeah, spoiler alert, not obviously, but as you can probably imagine, I kind of developed a template for this. I knew what I wanted to say. I knew how I wanted to say it. And then I would just change things around. If the company's a fintech, I'd add a line about finance. If the company's a health tech company, add a line about health tech and substitute accordingly. You don't have to rewrite it completely every single time. But that was actually really, really, really useful to me when I was earlier on in my career, and I didn't have connections in the same way that thankfully I feel I do now. Because people did respond, people were interested. It was different. It wasn't just your kind of standard thing that you saw on the news or whatever when how to write a cover letter. So yeah, I would honestly just be really brave. Be really, really,
What
really
was
brave.
it? What was it?
Oh my god! You'll laugh at me. I laugh at me. It was. So I didn't go to university. I went straight into working in tech, and I knew that I wanted to gain sort of meaningful work experience. And as I recall, and I'm sure I could find it and send it over later, just for the giggles. But I remember using the words as an enterprising 19-year-old, which don't do that. Don't do that. It doesn't make you sound credible. Doesn't. But people kind of liked it in their own way. I got loads of interviews, and I did actually end up getting jobs. Would I do it now? I mean, I'm not 19, but no, for a number of reasons, I wouldn't be mentioning age or anything like that. I think that, for better or worse, unfortunately, those things can play against you. You need to place your strengths. But again, showing personality and people work with people, and people make decisions about hiring emotionally. I think that's what sometimes we miss. For better or worse, bias is a very real thing, and bias goes beyond just demographic type characteristics. Really, it's about sort of gut feelings. Do you like this person? Do you think that you could stand working with them? Do you kind of vibe off one another? And I actually think that in some ways, that is important. You don't want to have people who are all the same as you, but you need to be able to feel like you can work together. So be able to present yourself as if you're positive and you're proactive, but not in a way that comes across as being desperate, but in a way that is just, this is who I am, and I'm really enthusiastic and I really care. That goes a long way, I would say.
And we talked about this a little bit on Friday, if you remember, Patrice, how culture almost wins out every time, right? Regardless of how you look on paper and the background experience you have, at the end of the day, it's just a group of people, right? It's a team of people, it's a company of people. So are there ways that you can figure out what that looks like 6 months from now, so you don't have to go into an environment where it doesn't match the culture, both for the candidate but also for the employer? No, everybody wants that to be the right fit.
I think one of the idea I carried forward from it was contacting someone at the company beforehand and asking them a little bit. In my previous roles, I did always try to meet with the person that I was either taking over their position or I was going to work with 2 weeks before I started, just out of, I suppose I've had a few positions where I went in and it was only after a couple of months I realized it wasn't a good fit for me, and I ended up staying longer than I should. So it was kind of a go-to from then onward. But I even think people are getting more comfortable doing it now, because when I left my last position, the person who was replacing me messaged me on LinkedIn a couple of weeks before she was starting. She's like, do you want to grab a coffee beforehand? And she just wanted to get to know the feel of the company, which I really admired her for reaching out to me. And, I hadn't seen her since the interview. And she was just wanting to know, if it was a good fit for her before she actually started.
So hearing you on that, what feels like the main question that we haven't really discussed, which is, what kind of company do you actually want to work for? What kind of environment do you want to be in? Can you make a list of what you're looking for, the values or the characteristics? What are your red flags? Treat it as if it's dating. Make it fun or funny.
I think for me, I've worked for a large company, And then the last company I worked for was very personalized and really encouraged training. And I felt I grew so much from that. But they were very open about, like, everyone's idea was very much respected. And even though I was in the marketing team, you know, I could work with different people on, like, in HR or hiring. Any suggestion I had, there was no, it felt so open. I suppose that would be an environment I'd like to go into rather than, you know, a straight hierarchy.
So have you, so if this were me, I'm just gonna play that game. If this were me, what I would do is I would do a really broad appraisal of all of the different job postings that I had seen that I hadn't yet applied to, and put them all on a Google Doc or whatever, and then go through them and look at the companies and identify whether or not it fitted with what I wanted. And just listening to you, is the company relatively small? So there are ways of finding that out. You can look on something like AngelList to understand the size, understand how well funded it is. Obviously, sorry, that's very startup specific. That may not be the case in other industries. But you can also generally find out some intel, which is really what I'm getting at, to understand whether it might be a good fit from that standpoint. In terms of company culture and values, you can see what's written about it on the internet. You can have a look on their website, and just how are they describing themselves? Because how we describe ourselves offers clues to who we are and what we value. It's not always 100% authentic, sure. I mean, it's very easy to have a poster on a wall saying be authentic, and a micromanaging culture that doesn't respect diversity and isn't interested in that. But it's a starting point, and it's good then to allow you to weed out things that seem to obviously not be a good fit based on your criteria, so that you can then focus your time and energy more effectively. Because ultimately, our time and energy and our resources are finite for everyone, and you want to make sure that you're using your skills in a way that's going to maximize your chances of success.
Definitely, that makes a lot of sense. Actually, I love the idea of the Google Doc, because it meant I spend researching one company, and then a couple of days later I might see the posting, and halfway through my research I'm like, okay, no, I already ruled this out.
I gotta say, I have a Google Drive with so many folders from different companies, different interview prep. Oh, also, if you go into an interview, do your interview prep. Like, properly research the company, research the person that you're speaking with, come up with some questions. Be really engaged. It doesn't have, and also try wherever you can. Don't just read the questions out. Make it flow in the conversation, because it needs, back to Hytham's point, it needs to feel natural. Like, people work with people. That's what they're assessing, and also needs to be two sides. So make sure that you're questioning them too, because paradoxically, you showing that you are not just going to accept anything and that you care about it being a good fit for you makes you seem more valuable to them.
Yeah, you're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you. If it
exactly
isn't a good fit, you don't really want the job. One of the first questions I always ask, or when it's my turn to ask questions in an interview, is what's your culture like, and what are your growth opportunities? Because those are the two most important things to me. If I can't grow outside of that role eventually, and if I don't want to be there, if it doesn't sound like a place that I would be happy to spend most of my time in, then I'm not interested.
Exactly.
So obviously, yes, you want to see how they're talking about themselves, and that will give you a lot. Another interesting way to figure out whether a company has a certain culture is just to even look at the job titles that they're hiring for, and the job titles that they already have. So if you want a company that's very gung-ho about training, see if they have a big training staff, or if they have sales enablement, or if they have a lot of content that's being generated for the marketing team. Are they working with outside agencies? Do they have videos on their YouTube? Are their employees posting about things that they learned that day in training, right? And stuff like that, can really tell you a lot about whether it's actually happening. And if it's not, I would, call them out on it and challenge them in your interview questions. Where would someone be able to find that information if I was someone that wanted to learn more about some of these things that are going on? Who would I chat with, right? And a lot of times what you want, especially if you're talking with a recruiter, is for them to basically think like, all right, you check the boxes that I needed to have checked. There aren't any red flags that would make me look bad later. You are asking the questions that I can't answer and only the hiring manager can answer. So I have no choice but to basically pass you on to somebody that can answer those questions for you, because they're legitimate questions. I just don't have the answers. That's what you want to kind of try and get across, at least in your first interview.
Yes. And that also has a ripple effect further along, because then when you ask these questions of the hiring manager or other people in the process, if they aren't able to answer the question, then that's you adding value and, you know, identifying a potential blind spot for them that they may not have considered, that maybe ultimately, because it all comes back to money at the end of the day, costing them money, and meaning that then they're not being as successful as they could be. So it's really about trying to find ways of proving value without showing that you're trying to prove yourself. It's a balancing act, and a fine art.
And like, and not to just jump in, but like, they're gonna maybe talk to each other, and you know, the hiring manager is gonna say, "Yo, what'd you think of Patrice? You know, and the head of sales, or the head of marketing, or the recruiter, and whoever you talk to along the way." Like, there's gonna be a point where they either send some messages back and forth. What'd you think? What'd you think? If one of them says she asked really great questions, and the other one said she asked really great questions, the other one said she has a really great mind for, you know, business or whatever, the other one says, oh, I thought, like, if they all agree, then like it's cool, move forward. But if one of them says, I really liked her because she was like, you know, her background matches, and the other one said, I like her because she had great questions, the other one said blah blah blah, like, even though they're all positive things, like, there isn't going to be as much cohesion around, like, is this the person for us? So you really want each of them almost walking away, like, kind of thinking like, you know, a lot happens to us all the time. Like, we'll interview interns, we'll interview people that are coming out to the team, and I'll like reach out to Serena and be like, hey, what do you think of, you know, et cetera, right? And she'll be like, I thought she was really good for social media. And I'd be like, I thought that too. Good, let's hire her, right? Versus like, I thought she'd be good for social. I thought she'd be good for Slack. I don't know, let's talk about it later, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden somebody else comes along that does match, and then we're going to go with them because it's easier, you know?
Yeah.
I'm nodding very enthusiastically, because what you said just hits the nail on the head in terms of personal branding and the importance of consistency with your online and offline personas. So one of the things that I did actually sort of when lockdown struck, so to speak, is really invest my own time and energy in putting myself out there more, which is something that, you know, I was a bit nervous about. Like, I'm a very confident person and I'm pretty comfortable in myself, but you know, the kinds of things that I was wanting to post were potentially more personal, not unprofessional, but just more around, you know, things that I was really passionate about, around like leadership and confidence and sort of emotional intelligence. And, you know, yes, I was worried about how people would respond. And that doesn't necessarily have any like real bearing on reality, but, you know, I'm a human being too. And it can be scary. It can be really, really scary. It's one of those things where the more you do it, the easier it becomes. So again, like, it's practice, like makes a real difference. And also just getting comfortable with yourself, you know, to your point about like not necessarily knowing what you want to do, find out, like, make a decision. Be really intentional about what you choose to go after and why. And the reason why I say that you should do that is because when you take a scattergun approach, and I say this from experience, I've done the same. I've definitely thrown my CV everywhere in desperation and got nowhere. It comes across as such. Whereas if you just take a bit of time to step back and calibrate yourself and work out what it is that you actually really, really want to do and construct your why around it, that's so much more powerful. That's so much more compelling. And people will sit up and listen. You'd be like, wow, I mean, this is different, because you can feel it. It's a different kind of energy.
I love that. So Stephanie, maybe you can bring us up to speed on some of the things I've been working with you and kind of where are you at?
Trying to think. I've only been away for a week. What have I been up to?
Bless you. Well, I mean, it's my first time meeting you in person, so
yeah. Okay.
Or semi in person.
I spent all last week catching up on contract writing that I had to do. So now I've got nothing so far this week. It's kind of chill. It's amazing.
Yeah, I remember you said you were doing some freelancing, you were looking, and it's like pretty big.
Yeah, someone got sick and dropped all their work on me last minute. So
Yeah, okay.
I had a lot of catch up last week.
That's another conversation, but yeah, we don't have to take it in that direction in terms of like part-time
I
freelance.
applied to a few more jobs, and I had a phone screen at a really fun sounding company. It does have a culture that definitely lines up with me. Actually, it was really funny being on a Zoom chat with someone, and I thought it was myself looking back at my own camera for a minute because she was exactly like me, and I was like, all right, we just don't do makeup anymore.
No, I mean, I haven't put any on in so long.
I can feel that here in Vancouver, we're still pretty locked down. A few of us are going back to work, so the most part, it's like, oh, hey, this is great.
Yeah.
Other than that, like, yeah, I would say we totally vibed. I think it was a good thing. Unfortunately, right now, though, like with Canada, it's Canada Day on Wednesday, so a lot of people are taking like Wednesday, that's it for the week. So I don't know if I'll hear back this week. I'm hopeful I will. I did send a follow-up email to like thank her for her time and kind of comment on a few points that I really liked in our chat. So yeah, just kind of developing from there. But otherwise, I've kind of come to this conclusion that's like, I don't want to just be throwing resumes at every company in Vancouver that might be a startup or might have a good culture. If it doesn't super work for me, if it doesn't feel right. So I've also been kind of debating just taking some time and really like working on other skills that I want to work on, maybe going back and taking a course or something, and just trying not to put that kind of pressure anymore.
Yes.
Because yeah, like there was definitely a few interviews I had with companies where I was like, you know what, I'm not going to be really sad if I don't get this because I don't know if it's going to work out long term. And definitely the job that I'm still temporarily laid off. They're still stringing me along that way, which is very frustrating. But also, I never really fit in there in the first month that I was there. So I'm trying not to be sad about that. I'm trying not to worry too much and maybe just develop my skills elsewhere, really work on my portfolio more so that it's less completely automotive focused and has some more to offer because I don't want to be pigeonholed in the automotive sector anymore.
Bless you. Well, look, I really appreciate, your honesty and your openness.
That's a post. That's an article. That's this week's post, but go ahead.
Did make a post, so that's good. Yeah.
That's simple. It's hard. What is it? It's simple, but it's not easy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always like what Rachel was saying about making a post about what you're up to because you're not really working when you're laid off. So I made a post about that and I was like, don't focus entirely on fitness. I'm not a personal trainer anymore. I'm like, I've totally shifted career paths. What is this post about? But it's a post. It's out there for what people are up to.
Are you clear on if the dream job were to turn up tomorrow, what would that look like?
That's a great question. It would be a writing job. It would be a writing job in a company that is small enough to accept career growth because like the first company I was at had this kind of mindset of if you're ahead in your work, you can and you want to learn something else, you can just kind of buddy up with someone. And I was kind of sitting with devs to be like, hey, you've got this issue that I actually requested of you. Can I see how you fixed it? So I know how to fix it next time. So that kind of a thing. Like I love writing every day, but if I can be learning other skills like development or anything else like that, just to be more well-rounded or to kind of move into that section with like practical experience, that would be awesome.
What sites are you using at the moment or have you been using to find leads for jobs?
LinkedIn and Glassdoor and Indeed.
Have you tried any of the more startup or tech oriented sites like AngelList, like Work in Startups, like Alpha? Alpha is free, by the way. There isn't like a financial plug here. It's just, I really like it.
Yeah,
or anything like that.
But I hadn't heard of any of the other ones until today. So
I think there are probably more like that I haven't heard of because I just haven't used them because I've, thankfully, obviously,
we're gonna
been in
totally
work for some
plug
time.
It. You're gonna get an icon on the video. It's gonna go right here. Love it.
I mean, Just doing my bit.
Actually,
Casually.
over your head of this side. Love it. Yeah. Well, what I would say is, and I'll kind of let Rachel jump in, is like, if you are gonna join communities, just use them. Like, use them the right way. You know, like some communities are great for job posts. Some communities are great for learning tips and tricks. Some communities are great for networking. Some communities are great for, like, you know, jumping on video and doing these types of things. Like, you're gonna kind of navigate each community the way that you think, but the point is just make sure you're, you know, treating it with like some level of respect and follow through, which you guys are doing. And that's what I love about all of our members, really, is like diving in and just like getting on video, making the changes. We're doing like LinkedIn headlines. We're doing, you know, we're starting to post more, like, and we're kind of growing together. So hopefully having those like engagement, like pods or like, you know, community surrounding you, like, we'll jump in, like we'll comment, we'll tag, like we'll sort of like be a supportive community for you. But the idea is like just to do it with consistency.
Also, I would be super happy to help in any way that I can. So, I mean, just as a quick idea that came into my head, if you were to write a post like on LinkedIn, and just do what many people have done, which is, you know, talk about your situation, talk about what you're looking for, but frame it in positive terms, in terms of, you know, what you really, really care about, what you're passionate about, you know, the fact that you really want to be wearing multiple hats, gaining new skills, you know, passionate about teamwork, really care about culture, blah, 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 blah. And obviously do that in your own words. Like, I actually had a look at your blog. You're a really good writer. So I'm, you know, like it's really clear that you know what you're doing. I would be super happy then to share your post and to add, you know, that I had the privilege of chatting with you and that I think you're awesome. And then, you know, and then seeing where that kind of got. No, I can't make any promises, obviously. But in terms of getting broader visibility and getting yourself out there, you never know what's going to happen. And you never know who will then reach out to you and say, hey, I saw your post on LinkedIn. We're actually hiring for this. Are you interested in discussing further? So that really does happen. But it only happens if you put yourself out there.
For sure.
And not just now,
No.
year round.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the next time something like this hits, and it will, right?
Yes.
Or you just get fed up and it's not the culture fit you wanted, or it's not the job that you thought it was going to be, right? And you click that box that says, I'm no longer working at so-and-so. You need to be getting flooded with messages. Oh my God, Stephanie's on the market? What? Like, I saw your post about this, right? Oh man, you've been talking about this. I can't believe like they lost you. Come interview with us. My friend has looking for a marketing manager. My blah, blah, blah. Like, if you're doing those things year round, like, you're no longer beholden to like your employer in a way, right? Like they want you to like just be, you know, like theirs until it's at will. I don't know, Canada's maybe the same way, I guess. Until they fire you, right? You're a family until like, you know, like until you owe them money.
I love your candor. I love your candor.
But it's up to you as Stephanie and as Patrice and as Hytham and as Rachel to be building our own personal brand year round, and not something that you should be doing in reaction to like losing your job or whatever.
Yes. Proactive over reactive always, which is again why like I would really advocate taking the time to get to know yourself and to really understand, you know, what were the pros and cons of my previous positions? What did I like? What didn't I like? You know, what did I sacrifice of myself that I shouldn't have done? You know, what mistakes did I make? What am I not going to do again? What's really, really important to me and what isn't? You know, things change. Things that used to be important to me aren't necessarily important to me now. And that's okay. And that will continue to do so. But just having that in like inventory of yourself. And also I would really recommend writing it down. You know, having it all in your head, just swirling around, can often feel really, really confusing. Particularly if you're a writer yourself, it can be really great for processing. You probably likely already do this. So I don't want to like writer-splain you. But yeah.
Yeah, because things definitely get lost if they stay up here.
Yeah, exactly.
So there was another kind of thing that Stephanie mentioned a little bit. Freelance, part-time, you know, like, not want to say 1 foot in, 1 foot out, but sometimes you're kind of pulled in two directions, right? Like you're like, like I'm making freelance money, you know, and it's kind of easier. Like I'm not really like held to a certain schedule, but it's also kind of a pain because it's so unstable and like it's like having 10 bosses. I understand, I've done it, right? So have you had experience? I think, Rachel, you have had experience. Like, how have you handled like kind of being in between and thinking about like, you know, how much time do I put towards freelance stuff versus looking for full time, and like, what does that balance look like?
Great question.
Have you done that before?
So yes and no. I've always looked for full-time positions or found myself in full-time positions, but I have also done like freelance consulting on the side because I think I've been a bit too much of a workaholic at times. And also, to be fair, like these are things that I really, really enjoyed. So there was definitely an overlap between, you know, my work life and my personal life in that regard. So I think, you know, I would take the same approach, which is get really, really clear on what you want and what you care about and what your sort of bottom lines are in terms of, you know, what you're prepared to accept, like monetarily, you know, what your going rates are, what kinds of opportunities you're looking for, the kinds of people that you want to work with. And then be very, very conscious about how you market yourself, particularly on sites like, you know, if you're using something like Upwork, where, you know, it's a freelancer platform. So you really need to differentiate yourself. The question that I was going to ask you earlier, and, you know, my just flagged in my mind was, what are you passionate about, like in life? If you can start writing posts on that and establishing yourself in that context, you know, that can also be really, really, really helpful for differentiating you. And then just showing that you're, you know, a bit more than just a CV, which, by the way, obviously, I already know, everyone is more than just a CV. We are multifaceted, beautiful, strange, crazy human beings. But you need to be able to get a sense of somebody. And showing that you have like independent passions and interests can also be a really good way of doing so. And also really fulfilling in your own right, helping you to keep ticking along, you know, amidst a lot of uncertainty.
I can make a assumption here or a suggestion. The things that you have on your wall behind you / what you had on your wall behind you during our other huddle are nowhere. They're nowhere on your profile though, right? They're nowhere a part of your personality online, and we don't know that. We only know that about you because of this interaction. But like someone who's looking is not saying, "Wow, you know, Stephanie." I'm assuming you drew some of that.
No, actually, I live with a comic book enthusiast. So most of the everything
even
on the wall
better.
behind me last time, that's my partner's. These are mine, but I didn't draw them.
That's so cool, though. You could write a blog about living with a comic book enthusiast. I would read that blog. I really, really would. I mean,
I'm sure it's affected you and your outlook on marketing and content and, you know, your Zoom background, whatever. We need to see some of that in your personal brand. But it's a question for anyone. Like how, like marketing yourself and selling yourself as like a consultant or a freelancer is much different than like someone who's obviously looking for a full-time role. It is, and it's not. We can probably have a whole nother session about that. But like, how do we strike the balance, like, without, you know, turning off employers, but also like having clients feel like, are you actually focusing on me, or are you kind of trying to get a job and you're going to dump me when you do get a job? Like, how do we fix that? Or how have you fixed it? Maybe Stephanie, like what has been your experience like dealing with that?
So I've been pretty lucky because I'm freelancing through a company and I'm friends with the account manager, so she knows.
There you go. That's one.
I think I mentioned in our last huddle, she kind of picked me up as I was leaving my second to last job. I'm actually the head writer on that contract because she said, you already know the company, you know exactly what they want, so just keep writing for them. So I'm doing that, and then I write for their parent company, and from there she's just given me some more work. So I can kind of tell her if I'm too busy or not, or I can also be the person she dumps a load of work on when someone else is sick, which is happening. And just from there, I've only otherwise had one other company reach out for me specifically to do some work. We're still in talks about it, and I did kind of make it clear that I am looking for full-time, but that I will put in obviously the work.
Okay.
I don't think I don't think he really cares how I'm going to balance it. And generally, I agree with Rachel. I am a total workaholic, so I will probably, like, even if I did find a full-time job, I'd still be working on that on like breaks and afterwards, and probably sacrifice some sleep and other things. But I don't leave the house very much anymore. We're in quarantine. I've got so much time.
You have a great excuse, like if nothing else. Oh, bless you. One thing that we haven't touched upon that just occurred to me when you mentioned, working through a company are recruiters. Like, how are you leveraging recruiters to do your job for you?
Oh man, I've had
That at all?
I've had no luck with recruiters, actually. I keep reaching out to ones that have been recommended to me, and they're like, yeah, that's great, we'll keep you in mind. And then they just disappear. So I'm kind of losing my faith in recruiters in Vancouver, if I'm going to be honest.
So I don't know how it works in Vancouver. I can't talk to that. But there are a number of different, like agencies in London that just approach you when they've gone on your profile and will start sending you stuff. How do you receive job postings or anything like that from recruiters on LinkedIn or something?
I used to. It's so weird. Just as I took over as like head of my department at my old company, then all these recruiters wanted me, and I was like, no, I'm really happy. Like, I'm the head of this company. Like, I have not the department, and I had like an opportunity to shape what I wanted it to look like. And I was like, why would I leave? That would be crazy. But also, I'm like one of 3 people. Why would I leave? And now I don't get those kind of reach outs as much. And I get that, like, they're probably super overwhelmed with people that they've worked with in the past who now are laid off, same as me, or they themselves got laid off. It's pretty up in the air. I've never really known how it works. The only recruiter I really got close with was at my last company, and she's a recruiter for that company, and clearly I don't want to go back there. So
yeah, gosh.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, I'm just kind of marketing myself now.
Yeah, it's a big problem. It's kind of like similar to how we're thinking about. That's part of the reason why we don't like look like or act like recruiters in a way. Like, we didn't start Hire Me with the idea of like, let's make a recruitment company and like charge companies to like hire candidates. Like, of course we can do that. What we are doing, or what we did, was focus on the candidates, on you guys. Like, how can we add a tremendous amount of value for all these candidates that just got like dumped into the market, like, and just like, here you go. Now you're competing with like every single ex marketer at Lyft and Uber and this and that and blah 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 and it's like every week it's like, we're hiring, no we're not, yeah we're hiring, oh no we're not, and it's like, what is going on? And recruiters are getting hit by that even harder because they're getting their open job roles pulled, and so they have no idea. Like, I thought I was supposed to fill 100 roles this year, now I'm filling like 40 all of a sudden, and the company's changing their mind every week. So what they're doing is like starting to double down, like, okay, fine, I know that this company is like growing and hiring, I know that they're going to hire this amount, I know that they're hiring a head of or director or this executive search, this very specialized high value position that's really hard to fill for them, and they're just only focusing on that. They're not focusing on, random person wants a content marketing job at like any kind of company. Like, they're not really like going after like the generalists as much as they're going after the specialists now. And it's up to the generalists to become specialists through the content that they build online. And the only way you're going to be able to build really great content is either by doing it yourself, right? Or doing it through a platform that gives you the opportunity to jump on there and create the content for you, which leads to the interviews and leads to the jobs, right? And leads to you building your personal brand year round so that you don't end up in this position again, right? And that actually, I think, is more powerful than just having like a random recruiter, even just playing middleman between like you and a company, because we're going to take these bits of video, and when you guys tell me, hey, I want to connect with like, like the head of marketing at like Peloton because they have a really cool content position open, I'm going to say, okay, cool. Hey, head of marketing at Peloton, Stephanie has this like really great background. This is what she wants to do. Check out the session she did with Rachel. Check out the other session she did with this person. Check out what her perspective on this. Check out some of the things that she's been doing. Check out the email journey that she went through and actually writing some of this stuff. Like, here's a video portfolio of Stephanie. Here's a video portfolio of Patrice. Like, get to know them, right? If this is someone that you feel like fits within like the culture, etc., like bring them in, right? That's how you guys want to leverage, like, hire me. That's how you want to leverage any community that you're a part of. Like, what is the deliverable, the concrete actual thing that you're going to get out of it that's going to help you like move to that next step that you're trying to get to?
Yes, and to your point about the video portfolio, which by the way I love, I think it's really, really awesome. Make it really, really easy for them to say yes. Like, give them everything that they could need. So like any objections they might have. And this is where I think video is so valuable as a tool, because it feels so much more personal. And, body language, it makes a really big difference. It feels more real, more human. And, in terms of expediting a potential process, I'm hopeful that it will go a long way for you both. Oh, I think
Stephanie dropped. She must have really disagreed. That was a terrible point. Okay.
Oh, bless. I suspect it was probably just internet problems, but who knows?
Yeah.
I did have like one final question, which is for you, Patrice, I guess, which is really, what is your top priority at the moment? Like, reflecting on this call and also just in general, because I want to make sure again that, as you leave this call, I'm just aware that obviously we're coming up to time, that we've covered as much as we can to directly address that need for you, if we can.
I think this call has given me like
workers.
a lot to think about. I know myself, like even at my previous position, like I was dealing with franchises and I was on about branding and bringing their personality into it and everything like that. And then I'm on this call and I'm like, oh wow, I didn't really listen to anything I was saying beforehand. It's like the whole practice what you preach. I think for me at the moment, it's finding a position that I'm passionate about. And I suppose one of my, obviously it's been affected with COVID, but one of my passions in life is travel. And most years I'd be abroad for a large sector of the year. And now I'm not, I'm kind of a little bit more time. And I'm currently working on my own little project of setting up my own website, just because I just don't feel like putting myself out there enough. I think for me at the moment is to find something that I'm just as passionate about as I am travel, something that I'm excited to work about. And I think for a company, I really have to have a lot of belief in them.
Yep.
And a belief in what I'm doing for me to perform well.
Yes.
Oh, Stephanie's back.
Hey again. You're back.
I overheated and died. I had to like run and plug it in and get my
bless you.
Marvel backgrounds again.
That's it.
More personality. Really nice, really interesting art on the walls. Is this still a continuation of the comic book?
Yeah. My partner was. I get to put my comic book stuff up everywhere, and I was like, okay.
I think it's super cool.
I
think it's super cool.
This is his messy. No, this is his messy space. I can't.
It kind of looks like a Zoom background in a way.
It does. So just to backtrack, the question that I asked Patrice and yourself was, what's your top priority right now? Because we're coming up to the end of the call, and I just want to make sure that we've really covered that hopefully also you're clear on that, so that as a next step for yourself, where you want to be focusing your attention and your energies in the next few days, and then how that orients towards your broader goals in terms of your career search or journey rather. But yeah, tell me.
Priority is going to be creating more content for my LinkedIn mostly. I'm
so excited to see it, by the way. I really am. I actually got quite into creating the LinkedIn content. I set myself a challenge that I was going to do an article a day, and I kept it up. And it was really nice to have that like structure, and then also to be doing something that I cared about and believed in. And so if you can find ways of bringing the same, people will respond. Or other people who the right people with whom it resonates with will respond, which is really what you want ultimately, in terms of finding alignment between who you are and the people that you work with.
Definitely, yeah. And I know I had this really weird dream that I was getting yelled at not fixing up my LinkedIn profile.
It wasn't a dream.
Well, I mean,
you didn't read that. You didn't read. No, I'm kidding. We were
I mean,
we were pinging you like on Slack.
saying that I needed to do it. So I was like,
I mean, hopefully you don't think that or don't feel that we've shouted at you.
No, we're not giving you nightmares or anything. Those are good nightmares.
I appreciate feedback.
Yeah.
Me reading other people's LinkedIn and being like, oh, you're right. I should really change that. I should just update mine.
I wouldn't honestly like. This is interesting, but like, there's two things. One, I would like detach, and Bilal Batrawi talks about this a lot, and Patrice was in on the meeting on Friday. Detach yourself from the outcome, right? So you're not posting links to get like views or likes or like change someone's life or get them to like you or whatever. Like, of course, those are byproducts of you being genuine and authentic and just doing the thing, right? Like, that is the goal. It's not like I need to, you know, be the best at this, or I need to be top 100 next year or whatever. Like, the goal is doing it, right? And don't expect like an outpouring of love or messages or this or that with every single post. It's just not going to happen. The second thing is, when possible, and this is probably even harder to do, think of what you want to accomplish through the lens of what you want to help other people do.
Yes.
Right? So for example, like Patrice, like your answer to what it is that you want to do. So you mentioned like, I want to be in a company that I'm like passionate about. I want to be in a company that's like driving change. I want to be in a company this, right? Like, I would focus on like the company and like what it is that you can enable the company to do. So like, I want to enable, like, what I want for myself is to help a company get from point A to point B.
Yes.
Right? I want to help other people on the team get from point A to point B. Like, all the things that you want for yourself, but just transfer that and start talking about it in terms of other people. And that's part of detaching yourself from the outcome too, because it's not really about you. If you treat yourself like a business, like a enterprise brand, like you are Nike, you are Apple, you are Salesforce, you are Microsoft, like there's no way you wouldn't be posting every day. There's no way you wouldn't be talking about how your customers, you know, there's no way you wouldn't be doing branding and all these kinds of things. Like, you would be hopping on every opportunity you can to like get your product out there. And if you think of yourself as the product, it'll really make it easier for you to get past the fear and the procrastination that comes with like actually creating content for yourself every day.
Yes. And to that point, you know, in terms of iterating your approach, like failure, whatever that means in this context, whether that's, you know, getting rejected or whatever, or somebody not responding in the way that you might want, that's just feedback. So that's something that you have a choice about how you respond to and what you take from it. So you don't have to, if you don't, for whatever reason, think that it's valuable for you to take that on, you actually don't have to. You know, everyone has an opinion, but their opinion isn't necessarily worth more than yours. And I say that because I think, you know, I speak as somebody who identifies as a woman. I think that often, you know, we have a tendency to look to others for advice when really actually we have the answers within ourselves. And that's, you know, that's super important to really embrace, because what makes the difference is confidence. If you're confident in yourself, other people will be confident in you. If you're not, then people will start doubting you. And this is why I really do think that the work is and has to be internal. And I completely agree about detaching from outcomes, because what you also do when you detach from outcomes is that you open yourself up to possibilities that you wouldn't otherwise have entertained. I mean, I got asked to speak at a conference that I'd never even heard of and never even thought about. And that was through some of my writing. And I'm passionate. I feel really grateful and amazed because it's so aligned with what I want to do and what I want to be in the world and how I want to serve. And, you know, that goes far beyond sales operations because I'm also a human being. And so it's thinking in those terms about like what you want to give and then seeing sort of what happens. And, you know, really having that persistence as well to keep going, even when it feels like you're not getting anywhere. That is what will get you through.
Exactly. Love it. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. That was great.
Yeah.
Nice. So yeah, we'll obviously send you guys the videos. We'll have some key takeaways, and I'll see all of you soon. Thank you. Have a great day.
Fantastic. I hope that was valuable. And yeah, speak soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much,
Bye.
Rachel.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.